Hi, my name is Steven and welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Lessons Learned Part 13, things that I learned while traveling solo. In these series of episodes, I'm going to share with you the lessons I learned along the journey of my life, specifically different aspects of my life now that I'm older, wiser, and can look back and see what I could have done better. The goal is to learn from my past mistakes and help other people. Before I had a child, I spent a lot of time traveling, and specifically traveling by myself. These were both places that I traveled for work and pleasure. Solo travel for the most part still has a stigma attached to it, but it's slowly eroding. This is because most people would rather spend their time traveling with other people than by themselves. But from my own experience, I do believe that there are specific advantages from traveling both solo and with companions. But personally, if I was given a choice, I'd rather be by myself than with a group of people traveling, because I can learn more about myself and my ability to problem solve while I'm there. And this kind of experience builds your overall confidence for the rest of your life. Traveling alone is never easy, but the lessons I learned helped me to become a better overall solo traveler. It has helped me develop the important life skills that I use in everyday life. Skills like adaptability, self-reliance, and the ability to push beyond my comfort zone. So I hope this video can help you with some tips and insights about my own lessons learned while solo traveling. And finally, encourage you to embark on your own solo adventure. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about my background, my lessons learned, and my general thoughts. And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends, hit that notification bell if you like this content. And here we go. When I really started to get out and travel the world in my mid-20s, I was in a new city and it didn't have a lot of friends to travel with me at the time. A lot of my friends were very busy with school and didn't have the finances to go with me. That meant that I had to do a lot of these long distance trips by myself. But that did not stop me because I had a thirst for adventure and I wanted to get out despite the fact that nobody else was going to go with me. During that time, I recall being very fearful about being alone and getting lost on my trips. But that was overridden by the intense freedom and the ultimate decision making I got to make while planning those trips. And I was thrilled to experience taking destiny into my own hands for the first time in my life. The trips that I took by myself in a faraway land was Hawaii, Japan, and Ireland. These vacations taught me a lot about myself and my ability to bounce back and adapt to anything, and really give me the ability to plan and craft my own life of how I wanted to enjoy myself. And not only that, the amount of time that I spent by myself helped me to craft and gain a better sense of who I was. I became more knowledgeable about myself because of all the time I spent within my own thoughts. And along the way, I picked up a lot of key tips to help me sustain my solo travel for the future. And it also helped me to enjoy the process of being by myself in faraway lands. And once you embark on that solo travel journey, you'll realize over time that you'll actually come to enjoy the process. So here are my lessons learned while solo traveling. Number 1, embrace being alone. This is the big elephant in the room that's really hard to overcome for most people, is being by yourself while traveling. Ultimately, if you want to go on an adventure by yourself, this is the biggest hurdle to get over. When you're solo traveling, you rely on you and only you for that entire duration. It can be quite intimidating when you first start out, but trust me, it's worth it in the process to go alone. Because if things go right and you have a good time, it's because of you. If things go wrong, it's also because of you. You can ultimately meet people along your journey, but at a must, you have to be willing to be by yourself that entire duration. I recall while doing a research assistantship in Japan, I had a week to travel Japan all by myself. This was the first time I was able to travel internationally, but also be by myself, traveling to 3 different cities in Japan. And let me tell you, because of the language barrier and the distance involved, it was really difficult to not know the language. I almost lost my luggage, I got monsooned on, and I got lost on multiple occasions in Japan. But ultimately, I survived all of that, and I became more aware of what I was actually capable of. Being on your own is really tough when traveling, so start with baby steps. Take smaller trips locally by yourself and increase the duration little by little. Be comfortable with being by yourself, maybe for a couple of hours at first and ultimately going on to a few days. And get comfortable with making your own decisions and sticking to them. Because when you're traveling by yourself, you have to stick to your decisions and the results and consequences of those decisions. So ultimately, one of the biggest lessons learned about traveling solo is to embrace the loneliness. Number 2, you will get lost. Unless you're really good with spatial coordination and a whiz at Google Maps, you will get lost at some point during your travels. This is completely normal for every trip and expected for you to go through. Getting lost and eventually finding your way back is okay and ultimately strengthens your ability to travel solo. Because this will ultimately help you to gain confidence for the next time you're lost, and subsequently you won't be as lost often in the future. And by building up that tolerance to be lost, you'll be able to take more risks and go to more locations as you travel in the future. When I was in Japan in 2011, Google Maps wasn't mature yet and there was a lot of locations that it didn't have in its databanks. I was basically figuring out stuff on the fly and it took me to many different dead-end locations. And I got lost more times than I can count because of obsolete maps or taking the wrong trains. But the key was I learned to figure out how to get back to where I needed to go during my travels. And it really helped me to decrease the fear I had about getting lost in the first place. I had confidence in myself that I was going to be able to figure it out and get to where I needed to go. And I also developed a fearlessness for asking other people for directions. So getting lost really helped me to strengthen up a couple of key skills, mainly asking people for directions, planning better, and figuring out solutions on the fly. So just like embracing being alone, assume that you're going to get lost along your journey. And realize it's okay and not to freak out when you do get lost. Because in the past, people got lost with paper maps all the time and had to ask for directions as well. Now in the age of Google Maps, everything is a lot easier, but getting lost is still a thing while traveling solo. So when you're traveling alone, don't be afraid to get lost. It'll help you boost your skills to get back to where you need to go. Number 3, language barriers are real. When you're traveling alone internationally, there will be many times when you're in a place where you don't understand the language, and you can't communicate with the locals to get to where you need to go. In these cases, try to have a couple of key phrases in that local language or Google Translate on tap. Alternatively, you can also stick to English-speaking areas near international airports. When you're solo traveling, the language barrier is real and it can be quite terrifying to not be able to communicate with others. So be sure to take into account limited communications while planning your journeys. It is ultimately a good way to travel safe to be able to communicate with those around you, because there are some people that might take advantage of you just because you don't know the language or the area. When I was in a monsoon in Japan, I had to duck into a coffee shop or else I would get completely soaked. The staff didn't understand English at all and I had to mime everything of what I wanted. It was ultimately unsuccessful, but they knew what I was going through and took pity on me. They gave me an umbrella, which I didn't have at the time, and also a cup of hot coffee. I was very fortunate to get through that event without knowing the language, but in other countries, I might not be so lucky. So one of the big lessons I learned is that knowing a lot about the local language can help you while traveling solo, because it can help you to get out of tough situations and also travel safely. So when traveling alone, language barriers are a real issue that you do need to plan for. Number 4, stranger, not danger. The one misconception about traveling alone is that you always have to be alone with nobody else. Certainly when you take the trip by yourself, you are alone going on that trip, but you don't have to be lonely. You are always going to be surrounded by people everywhere you go, especially the locals of the place you travel to. And you can definitely befriend them or talk to the locals or make friends along your journey. You can ultimately learn a lot about the area you're traveling by talking to the locals and asking them what's it about. And really, by talking to the locals, you will get the most out of your travel there. Your solo trip might end up being befriending the locals and having a group of people beside you all the time. So it's really an active choice for you to be alone on your travels, to the point that you might not actually feel lonely at all. In each of the places that I've gone by myself, I've made friends along the way and they've helped me to decrease my loneliness during my experience. I met people sitting at a bar top, asking them for directions, and staying at their Airbnb. I think that stranger danger is almost a uniquely American experience, fearing others. Sure, there are some bad people in the world, but most people are just like us. They just want to hang out and live their lives, and being friendly along the way. And there are many friendly people along the way in different countries around the world. So my lessons learned is that when you're solo traveling, it is best to reach out to those locals and talk to them whenever you can. By talking to locals and having fun with them, you might not know where you'll end up. So go out there, make friends with the locals as a solo traveler. And number 5, enjoy the ride. Finally, enjoy the trip as a solo traveler for what it is, which is a break from your day-to-day usual lifestyle. There are different reasons why a person will want to solo travel, but at the end of the day, it's really to find a unique, novel situation. A chance to ultimately do something different than what you've done before in your normal day-to-day life. That in itself is something to be enjoyed on its own. In my travels, I've met some miserable travelers, both solo and with other companions. These people seem to take their problems wherever they go and dump on the people that have an open ear. The last thing that anybody wants to meet is a solo traveler venting about his or her problem in their lives. When I travel, I put my life at home on pause, as it should be. I usually talk to and listen from the locals more than I talk about myself and my home. This way I can really absorb the atmosphere and take in the environment that I'm in. And usually I can derive way more pleasure from the experience this way. Starting out solo traveling, you might have a difficult time enjoying the journey. But slowly as you get used to it, you'll slowly appreciate being by yourself and leaving your problems at home. Once you realize that you can enjoy the journey, nothing else really can come close to that experience. So build up your solo traveling and slowly enjoy the journey and the process that it is. Because ultimately it's a really pleasurable experience to be by yourself in a foreign land. So here are my general thoughts about traveling solo. Spending so much time traveling by yourself, you go through a lot of self-reflection. A lot of thoughts, self-talk, and processing goes along with your solo journey. Some of that self-reflection can help you obtain the goals and dreams you want and desire in life. But other parts of self-reflection are decidedly not helpful to your life. This is ultimately quite normal because you're going to go through periods of negative and positive self-talk. And you're going to have a lot of thoughts point inwards to yourself and processing all the things that you've gone through in your life. This process can ultimately help you to become a better person if you choose to listen to it and then better yourself from what you're saying. Because it can help identify the things that you need to improve in life and what you need to work towards. And also, you'll probably realize the things that aren't working in your life and you need to get rid of. Some of these revelations during my travels are not fun experiences. Because when you have that much time to yourself, your mind can create problems that don't actually exist in your real life. Your self-reflection can be based on what's occurring in your life outside of solo traveling at the time. But I do believe that ultimately it's good to go through that self-reflection period to find out and unearth what's going on beneath the surface. Because we can learn a lot about ourselves and where we need to go by solo traveling. And gaining better insight into your own psyche can help you overall for your lifetime. So those were my lessons learned while traveling solo. While traveling by yourself is not an easy experience for the average person, I believe that it's really advantageous for everyone to try it at some point in their lives. It's a unique experience that we can all learn something about ourselves during that process. And I wouldn't be the person I am today without those solo travel experiences that I've gained. Knowing that I can spend a lot of time by myself, planning really complex trips, and getting out of sticky situations are all lessons learned that I have had. On top of that, I learned to enjoy the solo traveling experience because I met so many people randomly during my travels. So if you're thinking about solo traveling yourself, I highly recommend it to anyone who's interested. So I hope you took a couple of lessons from my solo travels and applied to your own journey. So thank you for watching. Please leave me a comment down below on whether or not you traveled solo and was it a good experience for you or not. And I'll see you next time.